huge shock for me to see how everything came together. And it was just the final high of that emotional roller coaster I've been on these last 4 parts.
Yeah, we were really hit hard. You know,
Yeah.
I really thought the worst was behind us emotionally.
As did I. As did I. And little did we know it came packing a punch, boy.
Yeah, of course. You know, Ava's so good at what she does.
Yeah.
Again, we have our news, our predictions, and our top 3 takeaways from this episode. So we'll get into those a little bit later. But let's dig into the topics of this episode. The first topic is just Korey's incarceration.
Right.
We see just it gets from bad to worse, and it seems like every choice he makes ends up in a worse position than he was in before. How did Korey's story affect you differently than the other boys, Kittie?
Well, it definitely was heavier. Once again, we have to use that word because it's so apropos. But to see his growth, and not in a good way, over the years was very hard to watch. I think it's super different because the boys had each other. So even when they didn't physically weren't in the same space, they knew that they could get to each other. They could write notes or kite. I think it's called. I've not been to jail, but I've heard that it's, you know, letters are called kites, and so they had that ability to do. Whereas with Korey, they didn't know where he was. They just knew that he was still locked up, but his mom didn't even know where he was for a while. So there was a huge difference how they separated him and made him a grown ass man way before he should have been thrust into that situation.
Yeah, he spent all that time in solitary at such a young age.
Yeah, but he elected to do that after he heard that's what he should do, you know, and because snitches and all the rest of the politics of being in jail. But the biggest difference that I took away from that was that it was really heart-wrenching to watch him being made into an adult. I mean, the very first scene when they get into to a fight in the cafeteria area, and I mean, just the look of pure fear and just being terrorized into a corner, for him to come from that to chest out, walk in, ready to fight anybody, bring it on. You know what I mean? He had to become that person, and
he was never safe. You know, because
Exactly.
it was always, you know,
somebody,
being
whether
a strong man,
right,
but you're
the
always
guard.
emasculated. You're always subject to someone's sort of, you know, power over your body.
Right, exactly. Over your mind, over your spirit. Everything he did was dictated by someone else. From the time that he hit the door until the time that he finally was able to walk out of it.
Yeah, and for me, some of the most heartbreaking scenes came between Korey and his mom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what did you think, Lexi, about those scenes and how it may have helped or hurt Korey to have that emotional connection?
The main thing that I took away from Korey's whole story in this episode was that God is real.
Amen.
Because he kept him. You can see his strength. He became stronger throughout everything he went through. And just the fact that it seemed like every single thing he was going through his time there led to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing, and then ultimately led to him being able to get out. Like, what are the odds that he was able to meet this person that led him to meet this person that ultimately led to him, what ended up happening to him at the end? So
that butterfly
effect. Yeah, I think it's just a testament that God is intentional with the things he does, even when we don't understand it, even when things seem bad. There's always a victory at the end, and everything aligns to get you to that victory. And that's really what I took from this.
Yeah, and when his mental state just was incredible.
Yeah.
Because you have to think of all the brutality that we see him go through.
Yeah, he had to suppress all of that.
And he gets these moments where he's in parole hearings, and he gets these moments where it feels as if he says, you know, I did this, that maybe this will be the time he gets to go.
Right.
And we know some of the other boys have gotten out, but of course I think he was probably charged as an adult.
Yeah,
but
he's the only one charged as an adult.
But he gets opportunity, but he still stays strong.
He stayed true to himself.
Yeah, what did you guys think about him sticking to his guns on that?
I thought that was amazing, and I thought that that's a wherewithal that I don't know that I would have been able to take. You know what I mean? After I'm constantly, just like you said, everyone that he came in contact with, that he met along his way, brought him detriment every single way, except the one guard.
Except Roberts.
Except the Roberts,
yeah.
right. But I mean, that he was the anomaly, right? So he's going from person to person, situation to situation, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. So for him to be able to cling to the little bit of hope that was presented to him through divine intervention or through his mom's changing and her becoming a Christian and giving herself over to God, whatever propelled him, the fact that he was able to hold on to that was amazing. Because I know there's no way. I would have been like, I did it. Okay. Yeah. Does that get me out? Like,
because I was certain he was going to do that for that last one. I was like, at this point, he's been broken. Like, I would be broken.
But I mean, they lied to him from Jump Street, right? So and told him you can go home if you do this. So now that he's seen the horrors of jail and stuff, he's not going to be fooled twice.
Yeah.
So he's like, you're not about to tell me I'm going home if I admit this. When not only did I know that I didn't do it, but that I've heard this before. Yeah. Like, fool me once, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, I really felt super strongly about his portrayal of that. And I think that he's an amazing human being to have endured so much and still came out on top.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to see the things he was able to reflect upon during his time in jail, you know, reflecting upon his relationship with his girlfriend, the last person he was with before all this happened, and his relationship with his mom and with his brother, sister, you know, Marcy, and all of the things that transpired in his life that led him to that moment. So it was really interesting to see how that reflection kind of made him into the person he ended up becoming.
Yeah, and I love that part of the storytelling of it because it was done completely differently because he was in solitary for so long. So he really is in there with these thoughts and dreams that are
And hallucinations.
doing their best to keep him sane is what's really happening.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
Because when you start to hallucinate, obviously you're thinking, okay, you're losing it now.
Yeah.
So you don't have a firm grip on reality.
Yeah.
But in retrospect, those hallucinations kept him sane, kept him going.
Gave
he was
him
able
peace.
to
Yeah,
because
someone
he
to
could go
talk
back
to
into
and-
his memory
Yeah.
and find a little bit of solitude and solace in knowing that these things did happen. People did touch me. People did love me. My sister, brother, Marcy, loved me in spite of, and I loved her the same way. Like,
and I
that was awesome. No, I really, that's a very good point.
But-
I
and
hadn't seen it that way.
That's what broke me about the episode was watching the what could have been.
Yeah.
Because we didn't really we think about it, but he probably was actually going through it every single day because he had just
course.
himself in his
What
mind.
else could he think about? Yeah.
So what did you guys think about that sequence? The what could have been? Yeah.
It was deep. It kind of fooled me for a minute. I'm not gonna front. Ava did a great job. 'Cause I was like, wait, did he actually? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Did he stay? 'Cause he
Because I
went,
was
right?
thinking the same thing because, you know, in the first episode, they said his name wasn't on the list. And I was like, oh, maybe he
He
didn't
did
go
stay.
because his
That's
name
what I was
wasn't-
thinking
yeah.
too, because
Yeah,
he came up
guys.
at the
Yeah.
end. So I'm still not sure, to be honest with you. Did he leave?
Oh no,
or
he
did
definitely
he
left.
did,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
because the very next day when they called Yusef to come to join them, you know what I mean? He's on the list, bring this one in. And then he decided to go with them as a friend to, you know, just be the moral support for him. They distinctly said, as you said, his name is not on the list. So a part of me was just like, wait, did he stay with her and go? But I guess not. That would have, I think it was, I hate that I keep using the word poignant, but it was
Yeah.
so poignant. It was such a good point of,
And getting to see it
Recognition.
because again, I think we all think it, but we got to see it, and
Yeah.
and you know, it's just, you could have been on Coney Island, you could have been,
Yeah.
and you could have been going through the normal things that young boys go through, and
Right.
it was heartbreaking to see it, you know.
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, we do have a little bit of a live read, so hopefully you guys will be joining us and giving us some great comments and stars.
Exactly. We just want to spend this little bit of time to thank you so very much. We're doing the best job that we can over here, but you obviously are supporting that. Thank you so much for making us the ESPN of TV talk. It means a great deal to us. We love what we do. So no matter how you're viewing us, whether it's on iTunes or on wherever, make sure you give us our 5 stars because we deserve it. Put some words in the comments. Let us know what you think about what we're doing here because you do matter. So being a part of AfterBuzz TV means a great deal to us, and we just wanted to impart that to you. Thank you so much for tuning in and be a participant. We love it.
Yeah, we want you to join our conversation. We were actually talking about how, because we're pre-taping this, and so we were saying, man, we wish we can go to Twitter and
Yeah.
you know, see our people in the live feed
So
and
just
talk.
know we're not ignoring you.
Yeah,
we
know.
wish we could bring you in, but you know we're doing
Yeah.
this before it actually airs.
But
so.
we'll be commenting and checking the comments and everything because I want to talk more about this.
Yes,
because
do
I.
We got more time, but I know it's not going to be enough. But yes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about. We're going to move a little bit further to the exoneration of these men.
Mm-hmm.
Just we talked a little bit about how it came about. What did you feel in that moment when you saw those guys on stage and everybody was cheering? Both of you, I'd like to hear.
Well, you know, I was crying. It felt pretty amazing to have them be, for lack of a better word, exonerated and made, and the rest of the world finally see what Ava was so eloquently able to show us, that they knew all along. So it felt a relief, obviously, and it was very empowering. But it was bittersweet because all I kept thinking was, yeah, this is great. You know what I mean? And it's awesome that this happened and that it went down that way. But at the end of the day, these boys lost their entire lives, like their entire lives. So it was a little difficult to watch because all I kept thinking was, this should have been happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This should never have happened in the first place. We should have, this boy should have come forward and made himself known and his crime so that none of this should have even taken place. But I mean, you know, what it could have, should have. I guess it had to happen in order for them to see the way. I don't know.
The biggest thing I felt was I felt proud. Proud that, you know, they stuck to their story. They never gave in on, you know, who they were and their innocence. They stuck to who they were, and to finally see it come to light where everybody can finally see the truth and know that they didn't lie, they didn't do what they felt like they needed to do, they stuck to who they were, and it all came out the way it's supposed to.
Initially I wanted to be happy, but I found myself getting so angry actually.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
the longer I saw these black and brown people cheering and clapping for just the right to live, that's what I was just like, we should have to cheer or clap for that. That
Right.
should just be how we were living, you know?
Exactly. That should be our reality, but unfortunately, it is not too often.
It's like we have to celebrate the freedom that we should have had in the first place.
Yeah.
But it's crazy. And part of the exoneration, we saw that some people had to question what took place many years before.
Right.
So we saw the meeting with the detective, and we saw the meeting with Linda, of course. Linda still digs in her heels, of course. But when we look at it from the other side, and we've tried to do that a little bit, and you don't know for a fact, as we know, that these men are innocent, how do you look at the attitudes of Linda and the detective who did not want to really admit there was any wrongdoing? Were those attitudes wrong? Were there any justification for the attitudes at that point in time?
I love the question because you're being like almost making them the underdog as if we should be rooting for them somehow. That's a great way to pose the question because it just makes me indignant. Like, no, we shouldn't feel anything for these people. Obviously, they have no hearts, and I think it's just so sad in the blatant evidence being given to them and showing them this couldn't have happened because this is what happened and it all makes sense now. And they both, in the face of everything, still stuck to their guns. I mean, it speaks volumes about racism, about systemic thinking, and the fact that they thought that they were entitled to do what they did. So there's no backing down now. You're not about to get me 20 years later just because, this person came forward. I don't care what you say. I got rich off of this. I stand by my word. I'm going down. I will go to my grave with this thought process because this is what's been ingrained in me, and I can't be made to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
I don't think either of them was willing to, well, obviously, to concede and to be like, I could have possibly been wrong. Like, no, I've always been right. In order for them to succeed in their own minds, they had to justify it somehow.
I just felt like they knew since day one that the boys didn't do it.
Oh, of course.
They knew the truth. They knew that there was no case. They knew that they forced those men to come up with something that wasn't true. That it was already set in stone that they thought that, so it didn't matter that someone came to them and gave them who actually did it, because at the end of the day they knew that they didn't do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I took it a little bit differently. At least, well, initially with Linda, I took it differently because I thought maybe she had some sort of history of sexual assault because she did really seem to be pushing the victim. But when you see the meeting with Linda, it's clear that, or Nancy, it's clear that she just wants to be right because she's been,
of course,
she's been pushing this narrative for so long.
And
I love when she pulled out the books and she's like, "This is what you've been doing in the interim," and they've been in jail.
I love when she said, so you're just gonna, believe this no matter what? Like, and she was just like, I don't know what you're talking about. Believe it. He was the sixth man.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, he's the one that got away.
And that was, to me, very much burying her head in the sand, but knowing what she did.
Exactly.
But what I thought was interesting was the detective, because the detective didn't seem to have, to me, that kind of thought process, but he really felt like he was going by the book and this is how you catch a perp.
He doesn't really believe that. He had to, this the same way that Nancy said, well, not Nancy, but
you don't think he believes that?
No,
Well,
I didn't get that impression.
Because there was that moment where they're like, 42 hours, no food, no...
Right.
And it didn't even dawn on him that is not a way you interrogate a suspect. He's like, what's the Reed standard? He didn't even know.
That's my point. That I believe that he believed what he said so long ago.
Oh,
or
yes,
made
yeah.
himself.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
what I'm saying.
Okay,
that's all I'm saying.
Because, so I really thought that, he didn't really see any wrongdoing. And it's crazy to me that you could be in that situation. But again, it's the mentality, and you've been so ingrained. And so how do we start to change those mentalities?
And with conversations like this, they have to happen, and they have to happen more often. And I cannot underscore enough, we have to go into these conversations and these discussions with an open mind. If we dig our feet in this, heels in the sand, and believe what we believe, no matter what the other person is saying, then it's not a conversation. You're literally just spewing rhetoric back and forth and getting louder and more ingrained, standing ground about what you believe, as opposed to thinking there actually might be some truth to what they're lending. And I'm not saying that I'm totally guilty of it myself. I love Obama. So anybody that comes back and is just like, well, Trump is a better president, I'm outraged. But I have to be able to hear what they're saying in order for me to be conscious and move. if you're teaching yourself the same stuff over and over, you're not learning, you're not growing,
absolutely,
you're not becoming a better you. So to be the best version of myself, these kinds of conversations have to happen where I can take a step back and at least listen to what the other person has to say. Because there's some good conversations to be had.
And I think in that same vein, there's more conversations that are going to be generated from this miniseries about the prison industrial system.
I hope so.
And so, I was talking about this and saying this is really almost like a part 2 to the 13th that Ava put out. That really kind of showed us the systemic part of it and how it got us to where we are today. But now we really saw it in practice. So it was an interesting follow-up to that. And what do you guys think, as almost a follow-up to 13th, what did this say about the prison system? What were those moments that jumped out for you guys about what it is we're dealing with today and what might have affected these boys?
Are you saying like the takeaway that I got from it all?
Not necessarily a takeaway, but I guess when we're looking at the prison system and how it does kind of equate to modern-day slavery, what were those moments for you that kind of rang true?
Well, they definitely rang true. And I was just going to say that the biggest thing that I got from that whole situation and the fact that it is that institutionalized thinking continues is that I didn't learn anything new. You know what I mean? I was hoping that I would walk away from this going, oh, okay, I was enlightened about this, that, and the third in a good way. Like maybe the system isn't as bad as it seems, or maybe these people aren't as harmful as they, but it time and time again, it just kind of emphatically puts a stamp on the fact that this is happening, and it's not anything different today than it was 19 years ago when this happened, or 17 years ago when this happened. You know what I mean? It's a sad state of affairs that we're living the same existence and that it's not looking any better. These films keep getting made, but the change is so slowly. I mean, Jay-Z was successful in closing down Rikers. That is huge. So I shouldn't say there's been no change. Obviously, but it's just slow moving.
Yeah,
It's
incremental,
just another story for a different day. We hear these stories so much that it's kind of just like normal.
Numbing. Yes, like the new normal.
Like you hear it and you're like, well, there goes another one. And it's sad, you're obviously sad, but at the same time it's like this happens all the time. And I think this was just one example, one huge example of something that we already know is happening, but I'm glad that this was an example where we did see them come out victorious, because there have been instances and still are instances where that's not the case.
Exactly.
And I mean, we saw, with Korey, the way he was suffering in prison, and just by the mere fact that he had the choice of either self-torture, which is solitary, or death. And that's the responsible guard telling you, those are your options because I don't want you to die. And so that for me was just very telling about how they do things. And then, of course, keeping them in solitary without, making sure you have contact with other people and making sure you move and communication that you're not going crazy. And so I felt like those instances were so poignant to me. And but for Roberts, but for this, I guess, angel of a guard, he may have known no kindness.
So you not love the Chia Pet moment? That was so awesome. Yeah. That really just brought tears to my eyes once again. I'm such a crybaby because it just spoke to the humanity of it all.
And I think about Khalif Browder, who committed suicide after, and you think maybe that bit of kindness kept him from
thinking that way.
And we have no idea, but and that's the problem with the prison system, is that it doesn't lead to these positive outcomes.
Exactly.
So.
And
there's no reform.
Going back to that guard, I think it's still another testament of how you meet certain people for certain reasons, because if he wouldn't have met him, if he wouldn't have given him the opportunity to go up there and mop just to get out of solitary confinement, he would have never had that run-in with the true killer. And that may have been the difference between that guy, getting saved and, what happened at the end, because I don't want to spoil it because we're going to talk about it, if he never met that guard and that guard wouldn't have sent him up there. So I truly believe that was orchestrated by God.
Oh, yeah. I just learned the term the other day, so I'm using it to death. The butterfly effect. It is so, but it's accurate, right? Yeah. Like this chain of events happened as a result of a higher power, but to see it all come together and for the greater good of everyone involved is so heartwarming.
Yeah, and you just kind of beat yourself up because there's so many variables, and it already happened. But as you're watching, you're like, if he just did that one thing differently, or didn't say that, or didn't sign it quite yet, you just kept going over it in your head.
And that's what we do in our own lives, right? Like something bad happens, we get into an accident, or something unforeseen happens, and the first thing we do is, if I had just, you know what I mean? But if you believe that everything happens for a reason and that it's all preordained anyway, it's just a matter of us really working our way through it, it's a little bit easier to ingest.
Yeah.
Another thing I really loved about his moments with the guard was when the guard told him, you know, if this was my son, I would want somebody to be out there to treat him like a human being. And it's like, if only people really thought that way.
Yeah.
Because all people did was point their fingers at them, like you see in
Yeah.
these TVs, point their finger at them and judge them off of something that they heard, and not even taking the time to realize these are children.
Yeah.
Children.
And they just need to be treated with like a human.
Right.
And on that point, when Linda and Nancy have that meeting, you know, the way Linda says, these were boys. Nancy almost says, Nancy says these were boys, and she's referring to them as boys. When Linda says boys, it's almost with a condescending disdain. But these aren't really boys. They're really animals.
Animals.
Yeah.
Exactly. There was such a, because they said the same things,
Yeah.
but it was how they delivered that line. You're absolutely right. And that was super powerful too. The fact that she stood in her own truth, which was obviously nothing but a farce from the beginning, only to be able to save face.
Yeah.
You knew that was all of what it was all about. It had nothing to do with any kind of hindsight or her being able to tap into like her heart or, you know, have any kind of feelings. And even faced with the evidence directly in her face, she kept denying it. So that was really just about posturing and, oh my God, ego times 1,000.
Yeah. I couldn't believe it, but again, it just underscored the same theme that we've seen in the last at least 20, 30 years.
Exactly.
You know, the way they're characterizing black boys and the way they're treating them afterwards. So, but we got a lot of news, no predictions, but we're in our top 3 takeaways. So we're going to go over that right now. Let's do our top 3 takeaways.
My biggest takeaway, I kind of touched on already, but the biggest takeaway for me was just keeping your integrity. Don't let what anybody tells about you, what anybody says about you, what anybody tries to trick you with, what anybody tries to tell you they can do for you to compromise who you are and your truth. You got to just stand in who you are. If you know you're innocent, be innocent. If you know you're a certain way and somebody tries to say that you're not, you stand up for yourself and you say, I am not that person. And, you know, I really had to question myself while watching this show. Like, there probably would have been a time where I would have just been like, I did it. Get me out of here.
Right.
I want parole. In the beginning, I would have been like, I'll take the plea. And I really had to question myself, like, you know, you can't be so willing to just compromise your truth and yourself for what feels comfortable at the time.
Exactly. And so they sat in their uncomfortability. They were grounded in their truth. And that does mean a lot. I took away, I mentioned it earlier, so it's kind of repetitive, but the thing that I learned the most is that I didn't learn anything. That this is not something that was new to me. I was hoping upon hope that there was going to be some glimmer of, well, this is really how it goes down. But, you know, oftentimes it's misappropriated or ill-informed because it goes through the media and they have their slant and they use different language and yada, yada. But it's the same stuff, and that's been going on since the beginning of time. It's an institutionalized slavery, and it was just very difficult to watch the reality of that come to fruition for people that didn't deserve any of it. It just, all I keep thinking of is how many people are locked up right now with this very plight that didn't do it.
And,
you know
and they
what I
don't
mean?
have someone confessing for them.
Exactly. That was heavy. That was very hard to digest. I mean, that's all it just keeps running over and over in my mind. Like, how many other people are there that don't deserve to be there?
Yeah. I guess my takeaway from this was actually like Roberts and not Nancy, not Linda. Roberts and Nancy, these were 2 people that were white, but they still, regardless of the time and regardless of what was being said, found a way to treat these boys with respect and humanity and love.
Right.
And I really, my takeaway was, A, you can treat someone with humanity, even if you don't believe that, you know, it's in their core. You can treat someone with respect, even if you believe the worst about them.
Yeah.
And B, my other takeaway is I really want to explore a little bit more about how were they able to get to that point?
Right.
How do we communicate with other people that aren't in our shoes to make them empathize in a way that lets them continue to see us as human beings, you know? And though we feel we shouldn't have to like do that or say it, but sometimes we have to do it or say it to make sure the work is done.
Yeah, exactly.
And so,
because it's easy to just write people off, so easy to just go that route and be like, oh, they're animals, right?
Yeah.
And just take that narrative, which is horrific.
Can I give a bonus one?
Yeah, of course.
I think another takeaway I took from this is the importance of knowing your rights and making sure we make sure our children, but especially our young black boys, know their rights. Because I think from part 1, as we mentioned, you know, Yusef's mom, and just the fact that she did know her rights and know what was allowed to happen and what wasn't, was able to get her son out of there. I think maybe if they knew that at the beginning, the situation could have gone a little bit different.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
As long as, so we just need to, make sure we know what things are supposed to happen, what things aren't supposed to happen, and make sure that we're prepared, because you never know what's going to happen.
And quite frankly, we have to do the job, because you don't get that legal education when you're 5, 6, or 7, or 8 years old, but you have to, because that's when
now we do.
Yeah, we're getting arrested at 8. We're getting arrested at 9.
Exactly.
Yeah, or even teaching your young boys, when you get pulled over, this is what you do.
And at that age that you do that, have that talk is getting younger and younger. The talk used to be code for he's at that age where he's starting to feel himself and want to have sex. Now the talk is making sure that our black boys know their rights
and stay alive.
And stay alive. Yeah. And the difference is like between it's night and day, because this is not happening in white families. They don't have to have this talk. This is not even something that runs across their minds. They know that they're safe.
And the talk is nuanced, because it's like, here are your rights, here's how you stand up for yourself, but don't get yourself killed. So you got to stand up for your rights, but not so much in a way
it's a fine line. Can you imagine having okay, so do this, but don't do this, but do this, but not like this in this way. And I mean, I'm 12. Like, I have to think all of this.
My mom gave me those conversations at like 8 and 9. She was like, because she saw it happening, and she said, I see it, and so I have to tell you, because if I don't tell you, you don't know.
Exactly.
So even though you're 6 or 7, I got to start to tell you now.
So you can you can insert that into your who you are.
Yeah. So by the time you're 11 and 12, you already kind of know the deal.
And by the time you're driving, it becomes a sixth sense. You don't even think about it. You pull over, you put your hands up. Period. Or put them on the dash, or whatever the case may be.
To this day, I drive at night, take off the backwards hat. Don't. You
don't want no problem.
I just don't need an extra thing.
Exactly. I got you.
So, well, it's been a heavy one, but I think we do got some news. Yeah.
Yes, news and gossip. Okay, guys, so we may have a Moonlight reunion at the Emmys. So we have our beloved Jarrell Jerome, who played Korey in our show today. He may be getting nominated for Best Actor at the Emmys, but he may be going against his co-star from Moonlight, Ashton Sanders. So they're saying that they may have to face off. Honestly, and they said Ashton may be getting nominated for a movie called Native Son, which came on HBO. I haven't seen it yet, but I can say that Jarrell definitely gave an Emmy-winning, or at least nominating performance. He did amazing, so it'll be interesting to see who takes it home.
Did you read that book?
The reunion.
Native Son?
I did not.
Oh, you have to read that book. I'm surprised they didn't make you read that in high school.
They may have, and
it might have been on the list.
It's a great book. James Baldwin's pretty amazing, so it's a classic.
I have to check it out.
Yeah,
I have to see it, because if they're comparing him in that movie to what we saw tonight, then it has to be amazing.
Because he was wow.
Yeah, Jarrell really did a great job.
He really did an amazing job.
And you have more news?
Yeah, more news. So going back to our amazing actors, we also have the amazing Niecy Nash, who was in our show today, and her new show.
She deserves a nomination as well.
It was great seeing her in a more dramatic role.
I know. I really appreciated that, because it just shows you how versatile she is, and I love how her character came full circle.
Turned on a dime.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. That she was definitely a smoking, Newport smoking, hell raising, cuss you the hell out type of person. Came back around and was like, I love the Lord, love your enemies. This is a good thing. We're gonna be all right.
That was a beautiful moment, right?
Yeah, it was.
But now we're going to see her premiering on June 9th in season 3 of Claws. It's a completely different role than this one, so it'll be interesting to watch her in that role. So make sure you tune in on June 9th.
Yes. Oh man, so we had such a great story here. This whole thing has been amazing. Korey's story in particular was really poignant, and that really kind of encapsulated obviously all of this last episode. Of all the 4 episodes, which boy resonated more with you and why?
That's a great question. I think Tron resonated with me the most, only because, again, being a mother of a black boy, his deliciousness, he was such a cutie pie. He was the smallest of them all. It just broke my heart to watch him go. Kevin. What I called him, Tron?
Yeah.
Kevin, I apologize, was amazing. And resonate. I don't know that it resonated, because thank God, knock on wood, I've not had any problems like that with the police and my son. But I mean, it spoke to me. You know what I mean? My heart was wrenching looking at this little baby boy having to go through so much unnecessarily.
Mine was definitely Korey, just because he could have not been in the situation. He ended up in that situation because he was looking out for his friend.
Right.
And even after, that situation being the reason he ended up going through what he went through, when he saw Yusef, it was like, that's still my brother. That's still my friend. He still asked about him in jail. And once again, another looking at myself and questioning if I was in that same situation, there may have been a time where I kind of felt like an anger towards him because even though I decided to go there, you still put me in this situation. But the fact that, he still looked at him as his brother, as his friend, and the fact that he even went just to kind of be there for him and to protect him and to look out for him, I thought was just a huge thing. And I really
because he could have been super resentful of that.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Yeah, and turn that on a completely different route.
Yeah, I think Korey, because I worked in the jails, and so I saw the conditions, and it was really emotional to see that here this was this young boy and having to deal with that,
Right.
Because obviously I was an adult working in the jail, and it was perturbing for me, and I was happy to leave every Friday
Of
because
course.
okay, it's a couple of days off. And to know that you're living there and you can't leave, and then you're there with the other
And it's
inmates.
filthy, and the rats are on your
Yeah.
bed, and the food is slop,
Yeah.
and everybody's whooping your ass every day. I mean, I can't fathom.
I'm still shocked he's alive today. It's amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
He made it through.
And so we're gonna try to finish on a happier note. So
Okay.
if you could nominate someone for the Emmy, which one character? I'm not gonna let you get 2 or 3. One character. You gotta get one. Because there were some heavy hitters in this miniseries.
Only one?
One character. You can do an honorable mention, but one character's gotta get you.
We got to give it to Korey. I got to give it to Korey.
I want to give it to somebody else because I just gave it to Korey. I would give it to Niecy Nash.
Yeah,
She did. She
Because
killed
she
it.
did amazing, and as we mentioned before, we don't really see her in that type of role.
Yeah.
So to see her completely, change around what she normally does was very good to see.
I like that part too. I thought that was pretty awesome. I'm going with Korey only because we just saw him, and that standout performance was just so memorable. Like, I'll never forget. I mean, he got butt naked, y'all. Like, he really stripped down emotionally, physically, and the point that you made about having making sure that there were people on the
Counselors,
set, right,
yeah.
to be able to aid them in whatever they went through. I mean, I can only imagine at the beginning of that scene where he goes in and all this time he's been quiet. He was withdrawn. I just want to make everybody else happy, Mama. I'm going to find a place. I'm going to make it right. I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to buy you candy bars. Just trying to satiate everybody. The time that he was putting back in the cell and he just, the F word. He was so upset. I mean, can you imagine how you had to psych yourself up before doing that scene? Like, I can just see Ava probably having like a little come to Jesus meeting with him. Like, all right, you ready? This is going to take everything out of you.
Or you get so deep and you're like, you don't know how to get out of it too. That's
right,
the
like
other
he might have
thing.
encompassed that role to the point where he couldn't shake it. That's a lot. Yeah, because method actors do that,
That
right?
happened to Heath Ledger when he played the Joker.
Yeah, where he was the Joker 24/7.
Yeah.
But he killed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
We
even
get
Michael
some
B.
good
Jordan
performances
said
out of
he
that.
had to go to therapy after he played Killmonger.
Right.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. All these guys might need to go to therapy because this was an
Yeah.
intense thing.
Intense.
But I would say I actually really loved Felicity Huffman's performance. Her performance, cause you really felt you didn't like Linda Fisk.
Yeah,
You
I
did
hate
not
her.
I
like
hate her right now.
And you did not like-
Exactly.
and right now she is sort of the name of the day, Felicity Huffman, in terms of the
Right.
news. And you really did forget it was her, and you were like, I do not like this prosecutor.
Yeah.
And I thought she played it so perfectly.
Very good.
She really did.
Indignant when the girl took the book, said, "Thank you for buying the books."
Exactly. Thanks for that.
She just dug in her heels. So performance-wise, I thought she was really, really great.
She was. You're absolutely right. Especially like even in the beginning where for 2 seconds she gave the boys the benefit of the doubt. As soon as she decided they were guilty, that was it. She
Boom.
never looked back. She never apologized for it. She didn't make any excuses. She was like, if this doesn't work, then we'll make it work because
Yeah.
this is what I believe now. And that was pretty powerful.
And you saw the character and you believe that character. And it was
Exactly.
just like, yeah.
The one who really needs the Emmy, though, is Miss Ava DuVernay because she did
Yes.
her thing on
This
this.
was it.
And at the end of the day, it takes a really good director to bring that out of those
Yes, spirit
actors.
hand.
And
Yes.
she really did her thing
She
on
did
this.
her thing. The shots were so amazing.
Yes.
I love the coloration that she used. Everything about this from start to finish was so well done.
Yeah, just from the time sequences, the way they would age the boys from the phone
Yes.
calls. And then, of course, the dream sequences when he was in solitary, that was beautiful too.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought
So-
all of it was super, once again, poignant.
Yeah, I mean, Ava's killing it right now. She's working with the best and she's producing the best.
Yeah, she
So,
deserves
Yeah.
every accolade she gets.
Yeah, so... Well, guys, I think that's it.
We made it to the end.
Yes,
Yeah, we did it.
Yes, I'm so thankful to have you guys here for support. We're going to be talking about this after the show, after the show. Thank you guys for joining us. Again, my name is Shaka Smith. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at Shaka Strong.
My name is Kittie Kaboom. You can find me on IG as Kittie Kaboom, and on Facebook as Kittie Kali, and on Twitter as Kittie Meow.
And I'm Alexis. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at I am Lexi Fierce. And I am so excited for you all to watch this. So make sure you keep watching.
Have a good one. Take care of yourselves.
Bye.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.